It's another week in the For Your Reference household. It's another Ref Max, but it is the last episode of the year, OT.
Woohoo!
Are we still in the millennium?
Did we ever get out of it?
No, it's going to slap you back in. Friends and lovers, we hope you are well. If you're not having such a great time, you've got your beloved friends and lovers to keep you company and take you into 2023. Let's get on with the show. Hey, friends and 2022 lovers. Welcome back to the For Your Reference podcast. You got your host, Katie.
And Oti.
Welcome to Reference Max, where we cover preview screenings and screeners that were made available to your For Your Reference lovers.
Nice.
Yeehaw! Today we will be covering A Man Called Otto, the Fabelmans, as well as Black Snow. Ooh. You're feeling spicy after our Christmas special, aren't you, OT?
I am.
You feeling good?
As I'll ever be.
Nice. Well, let's get straight into it, OT. The first film we are covering, I had the opportunity to see. Thank you so much to our friends at Sony Pictures. I had the opportunity to watch A Man Called Otto, which is also based off of a novel called A Man Called Ove, as well as the film called A Man Called Ove. In regards to this film, it's released in 2022. It will be available in Australia on New Year's Day of 2023. Director Mark Forster, in regards to writing for this particular screenplay. David McGee, in regards to stars. We have Tom Hanks. I also noticed Rita, his wife, was also credited as well. There was also a baby Hanks, but not a Chet Hanks. If I can digress ever so slightly, I don't even know if Chet Hanks exists to some of the community, OT.
He wanted to be part of the community, eh?
Well, I tried to bring it up with Tom Hanks' brethren and they didn't seem to understand. If you know, friends and lovers, you know. John Higgins as well as Tony Bingham. And I think I'm the one to kick this off because I had the opportunity to watch the film. I'm not going to go into details of the synopsis and I'm definitely not going to spoil this film. But essentially, this fits very nicely in my category of like grumpy old men that usually it might be a child, it might be an animal, but it reawakens them, it reinvigorates them and gives them a reason for living or gives them some sort of purpose. Like usually those are my favorite sort of films. So I was very excited to go and watch A Man Called Otto. Tom Hanks is really like the father of America. Mm-hmm. I think there was even an SNL, whether he was hosting or no, I think he was hosting. It was during like COVID times as well. He was the warm embrace. He was the hug that everyone needed, especially even now during the uncertain times that we have. So what I was hoping for was a Sam Neill type character in Hunt for the Wilder People. But what I feel like I got was Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino.
Wow.
Am I selling it to you?
I was going to ask you on a scale of Samuel L. Jackson in Lakeview Terrace to Gran Torino, where he lied in between.
But I feel like Samuel L. Jackson's character in Lakeview Terrace had some other ingredients that made him a grumpy man. There was a lot of sauce in there. I think part of it for me is because when you think Clint Eastwood and even Sam Neill, as lovable as Sam Neill is, you can buy that he's a grumpy man. And I also really loved him in Rams as well, which is also an adaptation of a foreign film too. Also, shout out to Michael Caine, an Australian legend and also international if you are so learned. Like you can buy that Sam Neill can be a grumpy man, right?
Yeah.
So when Tom Hanks is being very belligerent, he's being like really rude to people, I personally don't buy that. He might talk to Chet Hanks like that, but like I don't personally buy that he would be rude to anyone. And you know, friends and lovers, we talk about this all the time. It's not necessarily his acting prowess. It's just me being unable to disassociate from the fact that he is pure sunshine. And people kept threatening Australia because they were saying, you know, we might be the reason the koala COVIDs kill him.
Wow. So, okay, that's an interesting take because everything I'm assuming you've watched of Tom Hanks has been sort of...
I think even for Sully will probably be the most like on the scale of like Tom Hanks being Tom Hanks and beautiful and lovely and wonderful and warm. Maybe Sully would be the most not even grumpy, but I guess the most non-Tom Hanks sort of role. Because even Captain Phillips, because there was a whole discussion about how they portrayed Captain Phillips in a better light than who he really was as a person. But I think that might also be the Tom Hanksisms as well. Have you ever seen a Tom Hanks film where he was less than?
Wasn't he less than in Philadelphia?
But that was very early Hanks, before we calcified and we bottled the Hanksisms.
True. Yeah, I don't think anything recent that I've watched with him in that he's... Yeah, I could see your point.
In regards to the actual film, there was definitely a lot of heart to it. And maybe it's me, friends and lovers. Maybe I need to see the human side of grumpy characters because he was saying some really terrible things. I don't know. It was interesting. Fair be it from me to want to have humanized grumpy characters. But it does make me more curious to watch the original film, though.
Okay.
My reading list continues to stack up, and I'm really worried I'm not going to finish my book I'm reading right now for 2022. But I got the essence of the film, and sometimes when we talk about like American adaptations, and we're currently going through our reference degustation where we explore directors' filmographies, and we're currently going through whatever the fuck madness is Takashi Miike right now. And there's talks of adapting it, not just American, like Western sort of adaptations or Audition, but apparently that fell through. Parasite's getting its own. You know what I mean? Like there are instances where you see things being adapted and it might not necessarily work, or you can see the Americanisms injected right into it.
Yeah.
Or you just get injected Americanisms, otherwise known as the Gyllenhaal effect in Okja. But the sovereign state of Tilda Swinton really helps. But in general, I enjoyed it. I got what the themes of the film was, and it does make me more excited to watch the original film.
So pretty much he's just a Grinch and we get to see him grow a heart.
I guess so, yeah.
All right. Tom Hanks won, Jim Carrey won.
It's a Tom Hanks summer.
Uh-huh.
Let's move into the next film that we both had the opportunity to watch, OT.
Okay.
Thank you to our friends at Studio Canal Australia for inviting us to the Fabelmans. We also, I guess, just capturing the sort of experience that we had for the preview screening. Friends and lovers, we've talked about like lounge experiences that are beyond the general sort of seating. There are some really great sort of boutique lounges, George Street, if you're familiar in Sydney, and it's called the Paparazzi Room. So it really helped to enhance and, it brought the significance of the film. Well, personally for me, how was the general experience for you?
Oh, yeah. I love my gold class / luxe experience.
You do?
So this was right up there. And I think it felt even more classier than your standard gold class.
Like a classy Christmas, like Steve Carell?
Yes.
See, we appeal to the mainstream nerds, friends and lovers.
Oh, for sure. Only thing missing is a toaster with bacon on it. So I could, when I stand up, I could smell the smell of bacon walking through. But yeah, it was a really good experience.
The Fabelmans will be screening in Australia from January 5th in regards to general stats and information. Director, writer, Steven Spielberg. And there's a lot I want to talk about. And I'm glad we both got to watch it so we can talk. Obviously, no spoilers. Also, Tony Kushner. There's a great writers roundtable of 2022. We're talking Tony Kushner. We're talking Jordan Peele. We're talking Martin McDonagh. We're talking The Dans. We're talking Chinonya. Ooh, till OT.
Yeah, that will be definitely a main pod.
Oh, absolutely. But, going back to Tony Kushner, it was very interesting because when he talked about the cast and, obviously with the Writers Roundtable, they were talking about, how much space do you give actors? How important are the words that are being written? I think Tony and Martin very much related to, keeping to the script because the words are written for a reason. And he talked about how, there was not necessarily trepidation, but they weren't sure whether Seth Rogen would stick to the script, but he came in and he did the deed, OT.
Oh, who would have thought?
Yeah. Speaking of doing the deed, we also have Michelle Williams, I think a first for the For Your Reference podcast, Gabrielle LaBelle, wow, 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 what a performance, and Paul Dano. I love you so much, OT, but I feel like the thing that I distilled out of this movie is Paul Dano would be a lovely person to be married to.
I was going to hit you with the 1 too, but since we can have spoilers, I'll reserve that for the main episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, kick us off, OT. Thoughts, impressions, feelings?
Oh, I didn't know what to expect with this movie.
Yes.
I knew what it was about going in, and still I couldn't see how it would captivate me enough for the entirety of its 2-hour run.
Uh-huh.
But it surprisingly did. It's one of the better movies we've watched this year.
Yep.
It stuck to its lane. It knew exactly what it wanted to deliver, and it did it so well. I think Paul Dano's performance, just elevated the whole thing. It added so much emotion.
He can never not perform. He can never not deliver.
True.
Since Prisoners.
And it's wild because even the supporting cast, Michelle Williams, Seth Rogen, they're really, really good.
Yeah.
And being taken on a journey where it's super narrative driven.
Yes.
And just being encapsulated in a world that you get to see Spielberg's sort of memoir unfold, come to life. And not only that, but you also get to sort of learn his, technique. And if I was a younger me, wanted to get into the sort of movie industry, I'd be like, whoa, if I was not interested in his filmography and anything like that, I would be so keen to see how he started up. And it was so great. He added all that and more. It was very, very intriguing.
It's not too late, OT, to pursue your dreams.
I know.
I absolutely agree with you. I had some trepidation watching this film because what I share a lot on this podcast is I love emotion. I love to watch film, but I'm not necessarily being able to understand the different shots or the way a film, what sort of lens like you were talking about and that sort of thing. So I was really worried going into this film that it might not be accessible enough. But from the auteurs to the film lovers, I think there's really a lot of resonance that you can gain from the Fabelmans, because at the end of it, it's a story of a kid. And again, love, splooshes and shout outs to Gabriel LaBelle, because he did so well in this role. He made me want to care about it, because it's so important to want to care about a protagonist, right? But at the core of this film is a kid that finds meaning through the world through a passion that he loves, which is filmmaking.
100%.
It was really interesting digging into the family dynamics that we had in the film as well. Obviously, we don't want to spoil too much, but it's such an intricate sort of orchestra to be able to navigate the family dynamics in a way that it was done here. But I do want to focus on this for a second, or at least for a couple of talking points, OT. Generally, Steven Spielberg is known for the big family-friendly sort of blockbusters, right? Without even trying, we do find ourselves down the Alice in Wonderland film Twitter rabbit hole, right? So things that aren't necessarily cared about in the real world are magnified in film Twitter, or there are particular sort of takes that others may share or others may scorn. But there's a lot of sentiment about Spielberg being potentially a cheesy sort of filmmaker, not being surface level, but again, to appeal on a family-friendly sort of level. It's not necessarily going to dig deep. You're not getting like a gritty Safdie Brothers, like Uncut Gems, for example. So what did you feel in regards to being a consumer of Spielberg films and the film that you got here?
It felt very raw. And I think I wouldn't imagine it'll be easy for him to sort of lay out his life the way he did.
Yeah.
Telling his story and I think moving audiences with it as well. It's one of those things that you never really thought that you needed until you saw it.
Yeah.
And I look at him now with a different lens. And every other movie, I think in future, whatever Spielberg does, I'll be that much more interested in seeing it because I know a little bit more about him.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. I wasn't as giddy as I was coming out of Armageddon Time, but what I really love about Armageddon Time, you also see it in the Fabelmans as well. You don't need to give me all of the opinions and all of the social commentary that's going around at the time. You just need to tell a narrative that is true to you and is inshallah to your life experiences.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's absolutely what we got. Raw, absolutely. And it was real to the experiences of Sammy's character.
Yeah. And when you walk out of that cinema, and I know you just mentioned it didn't hit you the same level as Armageddon Time, but it was different for me because I remember walking out of the cinema and feeling just happy that I watched something so raw, and it didn't even feel like a 2-hour runtime film for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes usually when you hit the 90-minute mark, you start withering, or, you start to notice the time, but not with this. It's really insular, and it holds its attention, and it covers each and every plot point without lingering too much or anything that feels that shouldn't be there.
I absolutely agree. I think raw is a very strong word, but I think if we were to compare the films that we know or what Spielberg is most known for, then perhaps this would be.
It's his most rawest.
It's personal. Yeah, it's very personal. Absolutely. Standout performances for you?
Gabriel Labelle.
Yeah.
Really, really good. Paul Dano, we've already mentioned. The siblings were good as well.
Yeah.
They stood out.
Michelle Williams was great as well.
Yeah. She was. I was getting to Michelle Williams.
Okay. Yes, she's the cream of the crop. What I would also like to say before we move on as well, I really appreciated Kushner's writing of this film. And again, you say it's raw, it's personal, it's inshallah. Especially the way they talk about the way they were treated, as Jewish people in a community that wasn't necessarily so. You also see that in Armageddon Time too. So, there's definitely a way of portraying it without going the full D'Artagnan, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I feel like if you get to the levels of D'Artagnanship, then we need to reevaluate things a bit more.
Yeah, I guess we do, right? All right, well, let's get into the last preview sort of screener. We want to thank Jess and our friends at Stan for giving us the digital screeners to be able to watch Black Snow. Black Snow will be available exclusively on Stan on New Year's Day 2023 in Australia, and I believe it might be available on the Sundance app in the US and perhaps All 3 Media in the UK, but we will send out those details when they're confirmed.
Yup.
General stats and information, we will be covering it as a full episode, so we're not going to get into full detail, but just for now, the series was directed by Sean Davies as well as Matthew Saville. In regards to the writing credits, we have Beatrix Christian, Boyd Quackerwoot, as well as Lucas Taylor. In regards to cast, run it back, Travis Fimmel, thank you very much.
Oh, whoop, whoop.
Wow. We'll talk generally, but I just want to keep my wows in there. Brooke Satchel, an Australian intergalactic legend who we love. Jemison Power.
Woo-hoo.
Woo, woo, woo.
If you've not listened yet, we released an interview with Jemison.
Elijah Blackman-Kuroa, Alex England, as well as Ziggy Ramo, who also did the music for the show.
Nice.
Without making this about us, we got digital screeners for this, and it was a fucking spin out to see our names on the watermark.
It was a trip for sure.
It was absolutely. So we're going to be doing a full episode on it. It will come out on New Year's Day. But is there any sort of muy caliente morsels you want to give to us, OT?
I think if you've been craving that different representation in Australian screens, this is for you. It's very, very interesting. You get really strong performances.
Yeah, solid.
You have Jemison, which you already mentioned. Travis is Travis.
Yeah.
There's nothing more we can add to that, but it's really, really strong.
Yeah.
I think once you go through the whole sort of season, very bingeable, by the way, as well.
Yep.
And how we appreciate that in the For Your Reference household.
Mm-hmm.
Super bingeable and just powerful performances all through, intriguing storylines and plot twists to the wazoo.
Yeah, absolutely. The core of it is also a who done it as well. Who did it? Who's gonna get it? See how they run, or maybe not.
Wow.
Glass onion, maybe.
I see you're bringing your Mbok detective skills to the surface.
Oh, that's a Poirot deep cut. Are you an Agatha Christie wanker?
Just a little bit.
There's so much that I want to talk about, but I know we're going to cover it in a main episode. So what I will say for this, friends and lovers, if you feel you need to, go and do your homework. Google blackbirding, Google the South Sea Islander community. I guess if you want to look at who done it, you can absolutely do that too. But the core of this show is a young South Sea Islander teenager that dies. And it's a mystery around that, even decades later, to be able to uncover it. Travis Fimmel plays the detective. Jemison is a part of the family of the young girl that got murdered. And it is so... It's everything I love about television programming in the 2020s. It covers deep cut themes. Like, you know, we talk about The Harder They Fall, and as much as you love it, you don't believe black against black divide exists. It's also what I talk about, you know, everything can be discussed, but some things are a talanoa for the fale. So some things are a discussion for the house, for the community. Outside eyes might be there, but it's not for you to comment on. And that's definitely a theme that's in this show. It talks about the role that religion plays as well in communities around the world. But don't worry, OT, I'm keeping to Queensland. You know, it also talks about obligation. It talks about matriarchy. It talks about community. And, you know, even when we were chopping it up with Jemison, like, you can sniff it out. If you know, you know.
Wow. I couldn't have said it better myself. It covers a whole lot of important issues while being entertaining.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's that on that, isn't it?
It sure is.
This has been a wild year for the podcast, OT.
Sure has.
We do our cute little milestones when we hit 4 years, which will be in February. Is there anything you want to impart to our friends and lovers before we Thanos click and vaporize into the metaverse? We have legs.
Yeah, thanks for the legs this year. It's like our podcast has just gone up and running. Thanks for everyone who's been listening and tuning in weekly. It's just been an amazing show of support, and we appreciate you.
We love you so fucking much. Thank you, friends and lovers, and we'll see you in 2023.
See ya.
Mwah.